Turks, Cenk Ugranik is sparing with you guys. We've got a pending disaster here, as Anna has begun to tell you about yesterday, as we've been telling you about for months now. There's been the negotiations going on, and right now I think my assessment of what it appears to be near the end result, but you're about to influence that in a second, is total disaster. But we're gonna break it down for you guys. We're gonna give you the details. And again, check all your sources. Other people disagree. They think this might be a great, complete capitulation. Okay, anyways, right. All right. Without further ado, let's get right to it.
All right, well, so Joe Biden has released the framework for the budget reconciliation bill. The bill that originally was supposed to be around $5 or $6 trillion was whittled down to $3.5 trillion and now will be in the ballpark of $1.75 trillion, which means a lot of provisions got cut. Some things remained, but they don't have the same type of funding that was originally proposed. I want to give you a quick summary of what's in and what's out of the budget reconciliation bill, and then we'll have a discussion about whether or not it should be supported by progressives, especially Justice Democrats. Now, the framework includes universal preschool for more than 6 million 3- and 4-year-olds and subsidies for childcare that would limit childcare costs to no more than 7% of income, meaning that it will in fact be means tested for families earning up to $300,000 a year. Now, the $400 billion in funding for both those provisions would last for 6 years. Then these programs would expire. Democrats are under the impression that the programs would be so popular that even if Republicans were in charge, they would have no choice but to extend these programs. We'll see. Now, $555 billion will be allocated for programs to move Americans to electric vehicles and also entice utilities away from natural gas and coal. Now, here's where I'm gonna stop and just note that while Biden and the rest of the corporate Democrats were ready and willing to give Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema all of their cookies, all of the important provisions in this bill, there is still no commitment from Manchin or Sinema that they will in fact vote in favor of the budget reconciliation bill. And I say that now because the last graphic I read to you regarding the coal and the gas, natural gas, remember, Manchin is against any provision that would hurt his bottom line. He is invested in the coal industry and he makes a lot of money off of it, which is why it's been a red line for him. So I just find it fascinating that they're still playing these games about how they're going to do something about climate change. I don't think that provision is going to make it at the end of the day, but for now it's still in the bill. One of the major climate provisions was in fact taken out. That was the one that would penalize fossil fuel companies and reward them if they do in fact decide to move toward renewable energy.
Yeah, and so that one didn't make it at all because that actually would have been very effective in getting them to move off of coal. And as you're gonna see later in the program, TYT Investigates has another story about how Manchin's fortunes have greatly increased throughout the negotiations because the markets realize, oh no, coal's here to stay, Manchin's gonna protect it, and he's got millions of dollars in coal. All right, now, look, I think there's two issues here. Number one is, leadership is trying to still get progressives to vote for the bipartisan infrastructure bill first. Oh, they're like, oh, new emergency, Joe Biden's gonna take a trip. And if he's getting on a plane, we have to have it voted on. Do you? Don't care at all. Good news on that front, progressives aren't buying that. But the bigger issue is, well, what's in the actual Build Back Better bill? Worst name for a bill ever. Anyway,
BBB.
Yeah, that's actually slightly better. Anyway, and there, as Anna's explaining to you, and we got more on it, we got almost none of the progressive priorities left. It's totally eviscerated. So we're gonna ask you guys to help with pushing for at least one of our priorities. Otherwise, the ship's gonna sail. So, and they're still working on this. So this one is possible. It's definitely possible, but you gotta put pressure on now. If you don't put pressure on now, the ship's gonna sail without it. So it's Paid Family and Medical Leave Act. In fact, the medical part is likely to be dropped, but at a minimum, for God's sake, just do paid family leave. And so it used to be 12 weeks, they knocked it down to 4 weeks, and as we told you a couple of days ago, then they knocked it down to 0, nothing at all. You get pregnant right back into the mines the minute you deliver the baby, okay? So we got got a petition up right now at tyt.com/petition/no deal, but you can just go to /petitions. You can hit the link in the description box, or infrastructure vote. Make sure that you're participating. We get to 10,000, at least then it gets the press's attention, it gets progressive legislators' attention. Oh, there's a lot of people who really, really want paid family leave. Now, the reality is, of course, the overwhelming majority of the country wants it. But we have to do things like petitions to get their attention, because otherwise they're like, oh, I don't know, corporations say no. So it's kind of 90-10 against it. No, it's not. We all want it. And if you don't even have that, then they should vote no. No deal. #no deal. Otherwise, we got hearing in Medicare, as Anna's about to explain to you, and that's about it.
Right, and we'll give you some of the statements from progressives in regard to everything that's going on a little later in the show. But just to get back to what's in and what's out, yes, as it stands today, paid family and medical leave is not in the bill, but there is still a possibility that it'll be added back, okay? Progressives are claiming that they're fighting for that. We'll see what happens. Expansion of Medicare to cover vision, dental, and hearing was down to just hearing. A tax on the wealth of billionaires was also out, as I covered yesterday, in favor of a surtax on multimillionaires that would hit income, but not their mountains of wealth, meaning that there is no wealth tax included in the Build Back Better plan. Now, the promise of 2 free years of community college also gone unfulfilled, and the expanded child tax credit passed in March to give most families a $300 per child income support would be extended only till 2023, okay? So it will not be permanent, it will be extended for an additional year. Now, instead of the 2 years, this is the part that gets me. Instead of the 2 years of free community college, Democrats put in a bold provision of increasing Pell Grants to the tune of $550. That's it, $550.
Wow,
that is it.
Anna, I didn't know they were gonna be this tough in negotiations.
And what's frustrating is that despite all of the things that have been cut out, you already see the cheerleading from Democratic leadership, which we'll get to in just a second. But the outline also omitted a proposal, long a Democratic priority, to lower the cost of prescription drugs by allowing Medicare to negotiate with pharmaceutical companies. And among the provisions that did happen to survive are federal programs for home health care and community care for older Americans and people with disabilities. The framework also contains $150 billion for rental assistance, home buying help, public housing repair, and other affordable programs. Now, before I get to the so-called pay-fors for what remains in this stripped down bill, I just want to give you a little taste of what House Speaker Nancy Pelosi had to say in regard to the bill. And the cheerleading has begun, the positive PR has begun, the complete revisionist, take on this bill has begun, and it's incredibly frustrating. Let's watch.
Today we will be having a hearing. They'll hear from our chairman about the greatness of the Build Back Better initiative, and it's pretty exciting. I'm so proud of the work that our chairs have done and the work that everybody did to try to cut it in half, and in a way that we could maintain support for it, because that is competition for the dollar, even at $3.5 trillion. When you cut it in half, it becomes, shall we say, keener.
She's so proud. A bill that was originally proposed as a $5 to $6 trillion bill, now down to $1.75 trillion, and has cut out major provisions that would have really improved people's lives.
So I think she accidentally said the truth there. She says she's really proud that she cut it in half. Well, she is. Look, what did we tell you? You saw with your own eyes. We told you, and no one else in media told you this, that Biden and Pelosi and Schumer never meant any of those provisions. They never meant to pass the progressive priorities. It was always a trick. Why is she proud today that she cut it in half? Because her corporate donors are going to be thrilled, absolutely thrilled, that she did exactly what she had promised them. And Biden did exactly what he promised. Nothing would fundamentally change. All of this stuff is around the edges. It's adding money to programs that already exist or are little add-ons. I mean, look, the Medicare provision is a perfect example. Bernie wanted dental, vision, and hearing added to Medicare. That would have made a big difference in a lot of people's lives. And you know what they did? They compromised on just hearing. So no teeth for you, and and you can go blind if you like, but at least you'll be able to hear. Okay.
Yeah, and let me add to that, just to really express how awful Joe Manchin is, because in these negotiations, President Biden was like, okay, fine. Why don't we go ahead? We'll take out the vision. We'll take out the dental coverage in this Medicare expansion. But how about we at least add an $800 voucher for dental? And Manchin's like, no. Can't even do the $800 voucher for Medicare recipients.
Because all corporate executives already have dental insurance. They don't need that at all. So why would he agree to it? You know why they included hearing is a fake compromise. Hearing costs almost nothing. Dental costs a lot, vision costs a decent amount. Hearing is barely an issue. So one of our members had a hilarious comment that they just wrote in with Occam's Taser wrote in, are they leaving hearing coverage in so we can hear the screams of everyone we left behind? Or the laughs of the corporate Dems? Maybe. And so, by the way, one of the reasons they kept hearing it, other than the fact that it's nearly irrelevant, is that apparently Sinema has some sort of issue with hearing. So, well, she certainly can't hear her voters, that's for sure.
Definitely does not listen.
So Sinema was like, I will allow hearing. Okay, so this is where we're at. Look, everybody else is gonna pretty it up for you. Honestly, even some progressives might pretend to pretty it up for you.
It's an unprecedented bill.
This is historic change, it's amazing. And look, we're fair and honest. There's some provisions in here that aren't so bad. Yes, we've told you about universal pre-K before, and we told you corporations love that because it's gonna drive you back to work and subsidized by the taxpayers, but it's still a good thing. But also on top of that, there's a 15% minimum tax on the profits of large corporations, and including the money they make abroad. That's actually really good, okay? Now, mind you, it's just 15%. Okay, we didn't raise taxes on any corporations at all. Trump's tax cuts remain. They remain basically permanent. This is the Democrats surrendering to Trump's tax cuts.
Yes.
So that's both those things are true. You shouldn't leave out the minimum tax, that's a good thing. But you also shouldn't kid yourself that there's not a single dollar of tax increases above where Trump left the actual rates.
And again, I really want to reiterate that given how pared back this reconciliation bill is today, even with everything taken out, still no commitment from Joe Manchin or Kyrsten Sinema. There are some aides, some anonymous sources who have told the press that Sinema is now supportive of the reconciliation bill. I'd like to hear it out of her own mouth. The fact that she's unwilling to publicly support the bill as it stands today is telling. It really is. So with that said, why don't we move over to progressives, unless you have one other thing to add?
Yeah, I just wanted to say one last thing. Guys, to give you a sense of what a debacle this is, look, they took out the lowering drug prices. That has an 88% approval. Do we really live in a democracy? Why'd they take it out? Because of drug companies. Is this really a democracy?
No, and the only thing that matters is what the approval rating is among corporate donors. If they don't like it, we ain't getting it.
So I saw, or I listened to a podcast, a New York Times podcast that had featured Anna and small parts of it, The Daily. And it's amazing, mainstream media journalists, I think they literally don't know anything about politics. They're like, why is Sinema doing this? We can't, like, does she think that Arizona's more Republican than it appears to be? Look, guys, all right, so why do you go against an 88% approval rating, right? Obviously because of the drug companies. Fossil fuel companies didn't want the climate provisions that were the most impactful, so they were taken out for the fossil fuel companies. The billionaire tax was taken out for who, guys? No, if you're a right winger, you're independent, you're anybody. If you're a mainstream media reporter, I know you're like, it had to be to help the poor and the middle class, right? No, it was taken out because everybody knows it to help billionaires. Because it's a billionaire tax, period. So don't let, I mean, there's one thing that remains. It's a gas of a sort. It's gaslighting. Don't let the mainstream media and the corporate Democrats gaslight you. They took out the billionaires tax to help billionaires. Every person that's a real person knows that. So by God, at least when we're having a baby, can we not be driven back into the mines the very next day? So tyt.com/petitions. If they don't get that, they'll pass it anyway, right? You know how politics is, it's hopeless, right? But we say they should say no deal. And you should be very adamant about it, including the progressive legislators, because this compromise is awful. Remember, 1.5 trillion is what Manchin said he wanted. We wanted 3.5 trillion, and we ended up at 1.75. Where's the compromise? No, we got slaughtered here. You got to, at a minimum, give us paid family leave.
All right, why don't we take a brief break? When we come back, we'll tell you how progressives have responded to all of this, what is likely to happen. You don't want to miss that story. And then later, as if everything that Sinema is engaged in wasn't insulting enough to her constituents and to Democratic voters, she's really rubbing things in our faces today by referencing Ted Lasso of all things. So we've got that story and more. Stick around, we'll be right back.
What's happening? I'm Rashad Richey, host of Indisputable with Dr. Rashad Richey right here on TYT. Let me tell you what we do on Indisputable. We go beyond the headline. We make sure that you know the full context of the story. And we also highlight issues that are important to the everyday person. We're talking about criminal justice reform. We're talking about the climate. We're talking about what's happening right in your local community. We also highlight very important issues that are affecting all of us, like the economy, jobs, and we engage in transparent debates with people who may not think like me. We're living in a current social atmosphere where opinions are represented as facts and lies are represented as truth. Make sure you tune in to Indisputable with Dr. Rashad Richey, Monday through Friday, 2:30 p.m. Eastern Time, 11:30 a.m. Pacific Time.
Hi, I'm John, and I'm new to TikTok, but about 3 years ago, I started my daily political news show, The Damage Report, because I noticed this trend where every morning I was waking up to this tsunami of news that was just generally dreadful and horrifying and shocking, and I thought that if I could spend my time helping people to navigate this, serving as a bit of a life raft, pointing out which news is important and why, there are worse ways to spend your day. We're not an average news show, and we don't want our TikTok presence to be average either, so feel free to let us know what you'd like us to do on the platform, and maybe give us a follow at The Damage Report.
All right, Amazon Prime members, here's how you can subscribe for free on Twitch. Start by linking your Amazon Prime account to your Twitch account, and then click that little subscribe or resubscribe button below the stream on Twitch. Scroll down and select the subscribe free with Prime button, and then you're finished. Close out immediately and share your little subscription alert with the chat. Send a cute message along with it and bathe in the sweet, twitchy, Bezos-funded love. Hashtag Bezos Bucks.
Hey everyone, Matteo Scarapore here, author of Black Buck, which is Shop TYT's first fiction book ever. I'm honored. So, Black Buck is about a young man named Darren who's living in Bed-Stuy, Brooklyn. He lives with his mom, he has his girlfriend, he has his best friend, he has his neighborhood, and his neighborhood has him. Darren's also working at a Starbucks in Midtown Manhattan. And one day, this man, who's real suave and good looking, comes in and asks Darren to give him his regular. But for some reason, Darren says no. This man named Rhett Daniels, who's the CEO of a startup called Someone, located on the 36th floor of the same building, is impressed. And he invites Darren upstairs, and then he extends an offer to join his elite sales team. Darren reluctantly joins, and he soon realizes that he's not the only black salesperson there. He's the only black person in the entire company. So he goes through hell and back in order to make it to the top. And once there, he has status, money, power, but he says, you know what? I don't like being the token black guy. So he hatches a plan to help other people of color infiltrate America's tech startup sales teams. redefining what it means to be a minority in the workplace. This book definitely, if you couldn't tell, touches on many things that are relevant to this moment that we're all living in right now. But it's also connected to the many moments in history that have come before today. I hope that you read it. I hope that you enjoy it. And if you want to order a copy, go to shoptyt.com. Thank you, be well, and happy 2021.
All right, back on TYT, Cenk and Anna with you guys. In case any legislators are watching, the jury is in. Everyone watching hates this so-called compromise. Jazz Maven in the member section wrote in, "This is pathetic. Corporate donors win and we lose. That is no compromise." And Canada Dan said, "Admittedly, I do not live in paradise here in Canada, but man, I feel I'm so much better off than you guys down there. It's beyond belief what's going on. The corruption and nothing going anywhere." Yep. That's America for you, Anna.
All right, let's talk about progressives. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi is pressuring progressives to vote in favor of the bipartisan infrastructure bill. There were some reports indicating that she would have held a vote today. Now, the bipartisan infrastructure bill is the corporate handout bill. There wasn't a mention about the budget reconciliation bill. Even with it stripped down, there's still no bill ready to vote on. And so the question is, are progressives gonna fall for this? Are we done negotiating on the reconciliation bill? Are they even willing to vote in favor of the corporate handout bill? Now, before I get to the details of how this is all going down, I wanna go to this video featuring Nancy Pelosi in her press conference today, where she was talking about how transformative the stripped down budget reconciliation bill is. Let's watch.
I said, how is this transformational if you're having to cut things like paid leave, these major climate programs, and what are the plans going forward to try to deal with some of those?
Well, thank you so much for your question. It is transformative and it is historic, and it's the issues that it addresses, and it's not issues, these are values. I'm still fighting for paid leave. I frankly have a hard time debating it because I don't understand why we wouldn't have that. But nonetheless, it does not undermine the fact that we have nearly $1 trillion in universal pre-K, child care, child tax credit, home health care, and the rest. So one program, as important as it is, does not subtract from the rest of it. Again, we still want that. How can I say that this is transformative? Because it is. Because children in 12 states, families in 12 states will now have access to the Affordable Care Act, because we'll have $500 billion to save the planet. This is quite remarkable. And if you took any one piece of it, it would be transformative and historic. Taking together, it's quite a spectacular vision that President Biden has put forth. So it's a big values issue for us. Anytime you want to ask me why I think this is transformative, I'm happy to answer that question.
I would disagree with this being a transformative bill. Now, just to give you a sense of how it's not transformative, I mean, it started off with a permanent child tax credit. It was supposed to be a permanent child tax credit, which would have cut child poverty in half. So as it's begun, like the very first initial proposal, I would argue doesn't go far enough. Why don't we get rid of child poverty in the richest country in the world, right? They got rid of that, meaning that it will not be permanent, it'll only be extended for an additional year. How is this a transformative bill? Universal pre-K, great, that's a great provision. I would argue that's not gonna transform the country. But anyway, look, this is all part of a pressure campaign to get progressives to sign on to the bipartisan infrastructure bill, which is clearly their top priority. That's what they care about the most. And there's still no bill to vote for in terms of the budget reconciliation bill. They're still going back and forth regarding the framework of that bill. And one other thing I want to note is that the corporate media is playing along with Democratic leadership. Here is an excerpt from a CNN report that states, one thing is for sure, if progressives don't eventually come aboard, even if they are dissatisfied with the compromises made to get the package through the Senate, they could inflict huge damage on Biden's already wobbling presidency. So in other words, Biden's cowardice, weakness, and failure to play hardball with corporate Dems is somehow the progressives' fault? No, that's on him. So blaming progressives for his failures is pretty pathetic.
It goes a little further than that. If you just stretch out the logic a little bit, progressives are actually fighting for the original Biden plan. It was Biden's plan that he put forward. So now corporate media has flipped it on its head and saying, since progressives are fighting for Biden's plan, they're hurting Biden. But wait a minute, they eviscerated Biden's plan, the corporate Democrats did, Manchin and Sinema did, and they cut it in half, and then Pelosi came out and bragged about how it's cut in half. So how are progressives fighting against Biden's agenda? No, look, but we told you this a long time ago. You saw it with your own eyes. We told you the corporate media at the end would be the thugs that would come in and intimidate progressives, and they would yell at them in unison. You heard us say it, and here it is. It's happening just like we told you it would happen. And they're coming and go, it's all the progressives' fault. Of course it's the progressives. Just take crumbs, as you always do, and learn to deal with it. No media figure apparently figured out. I mean, we're gonna get to this in a minute, but Don Lemon was talking to Jamal Bowman, and he's like confounded as to why there isn't a deal yet. It's corporate donors, knucklehead. It's corporate donors. And so, look, I'm done being frustrated with mainstream media. I don't think they're bright enough to even understand the one thing about politics, but the rest of us totally get it. It's obvious. So when you see Pelosi out there, it's hashtag marketing. Oh, it's all it is marketing. It's transformative. Why? Because I say it is. Now write it down.
So today she went into a Congressional Progressive Caucus meeting in order to pressure progressives to vote in favor of the bipartisan infrastructure bill. She wanted to bring that to the House floor for a vote today. And apparently she was being so annoying about it that they kicked her out of the meeting. Now, Pelosi's spokesperson completely denies that happened.
Oh, yeah.
I don't believe him. But I do also want to give you some statements from President Joe Biden because he's also, of course, engaging in this pressure campaign. He says, we have a framework that will get 50 votes in the United States Senate. Let's just pause for a second. Manchin and Sinema still have not committed to voting for the budget reconciliation bill. Let me continue. Don't think it's hyperbole to say that the House and Senate majorities and my presidency will be determined by what happens in the next week.
We told you that at the end, Biden would come out and beat up progressives. So now he never laid a glove on Manchin and Sinema. Now, yes, sir, absolutely, sir. We'll take it out, sir. By the way, why? They had the same donors. They're the same donors. It was theater. It was always theater, okay? So now he's turning around and going, my entire presidency depends on this, progressives, and you better do it within the next week. Otherwise, they'll be hell to pay. Oh, really?
How about a little personal responsibility? Because let me tell you something. As much as I despise Donald Trump and the terrible person he is, let's just imagine in a topsy-turvy world, Donald Trump was the one who's trying to pass the Build Back Better agenda, okay? You know what Donald Trump would do? He would immediately call for an investigation into Joe Manchin's daughter, who broke antitrust laws by conspiring with Pfizer to ensure that Pfizer didn't release a generic version of the EpiPen, so her pharmaceutical company could jack up the prices to whatever she wanted. She broke laws. There should be a DOJ investigation.
Or how about?
I would hate for you and your daughter to have to deal with this DOJ investigation, Manchin. How about firing his wife, who got a cushy little federal job that she wanted? How about that? But Biden doesn't want it. He just doesn't want it. Let's just be real about it, okay? When you really want something and you're in a position of power, you're the president of the United States, you will do what's necessary to get it done. Biden's not doing it because he doesn't want it. In fact, guess what he did? Pulled his buddy in. Same person who helped save him in the primary election, President Barack Obama. Former President Barack Obama chimed in with a public statement calling the outline, meaning the reconciliation bill, a giant leap forward.
Of course, the Obama marketing has begun. Okay, whenever they have a corporate deal, corporate Obama comes in to sanction it and says, now everybody bow your heads. The king corporate man has arrived and he has the best marketing in all of America. Corporate media has kissed his ass for so long, he's golden. Everybody bow down to the corporate deal that Obama and Biden have sanctioned. So look, guys, everybody else is gonna lie to you and they're gonna pretend that Biden always wanted it, but golly gee, he just couldn't get all the provisions. He couldn't get any of the provisions that he claimed to be in favor of. Hey, all the ones that were cut were all progressive provisions. Golly gee, that's a tough break. But you know, if it is a tough break, then aren't you incompetent? Media, like, make up your mind. I know you just you're not actual journalists. You're the really low-level marketing guys in this corporate ladder. It's really pathetic. But make up your mind. Is Joe Biden amazing because he got his agenda through, or is he incompetent because he couldn't get any of the things he said he was going to get through?
Yeah.
So none of it makes any sense. And one of the things they said to progressives, they're like, now if you guys are good boys and girls, Joe Biden will come speak to you. Ooh, yeah. Who cares? I mean, look at the mindset of Washington. Like, who cares about policy? But Biden will come talk to you and then you can go brag at home that you're buddies with Biden and that'll give you a little extra marketing. Pathetic. So actually, progressives kind of kicking out Pelosi from that meeting is actually the bravest and best thing I've seen them ever do.
Great, more of that. We need more of that.
Yeah.
So look, the real question is, what are progressives planning on doing, right? There's some mixed messaging and I think we need to get into that. So let's talk about it. Now that corporate Democrats and Democratic leadership are applying pressure to progressives to sign on to the bipartisan infrastructure deal, what are progressives like Senator Bernie Sanders saying? Are they in favor of the pared down budget reconciliation bill? Are they willing to vote in favor of the bipartisan infrastructure deal, which is nothing more than a corporate handout bill? Well, here's what Bernie Sanders had to say. What I would say is you have the outline of a very significant piece of legislation. He's referring to the reconciliation bill, but he argues, I want us to make it better. That's what Bernie said. Okay.
It's not a significant piece of legislation.
It's not. I'm guessing he says that to be diplomatic.
No, he says it because he's gonna agree to pass it. Let's be honest. So I want him to fight harder on paid family leave and dental and vision, but a lot of this stuff is paid family leave the ship has not sailed. By the way, they claim that they're still fighting on lowering drug prices. Number one, I would be shocked. Number two, right now we have a petition saying, just for God's sake, get paid family leave. Already about 3,000 people have signed it within like a couple of hours and half an hour or so or less. But look, a lot of the people signing it are leaving notes saying, I don't know that I even like it with paid family leave. We're only getting like 1.5 things out of the 10 that we wanted. If they got lower drug prices, our ability to negotiate, then it would actually be a good bill. And I would say, hey, despite all of our losses, yes, God bless, that's a big, big difference maker. But I would be shocked if they got that.
All right, so we've got a lot of video to get to, and I want to start with Jamal Bowman speaking to Don Lemon on CNN. He was asked specifically whether he would support the reconciliation bill as it stands today. I did not really appreciate his answer on that, but he did have some statements in response to Manchin, so let's watch.
What do you think? If that's out, are you in?
You know, that remains to be determined. We're the only developed country in the world that does not have paid family leave. So it remains to be determined where I am now that I'm hearing that that is out.
Will you vote for the spending bill if that's not in it?
Again, it remains to be seen, right? This negotiation has been changing seemingly minute by minute.
So maybe I'm being unfair. I would have preferred a strong statement, a strong no, I'm not gonna vote for it as it stands today. But maybe he's just trying to make a point about how things are constantly changing and you don't know what the final bill is gonna be. I don't know. But I think it's important for progressives to stand their ground and make it abundantly clear that the bill as it stands today, without paid family leave, is a no-go for them. They're gonna vote no. That's not what we got in that interview.
So we have a petition on that, tyt.com/petitions. Okay, so look, he can't go out on his own and say, no, I'm drawing a line on it.
Why?
Because they work together, and if one person goes out and does it, the others feel like, well, you didn't check with us and that wasn't cool, right? Now, that doesn't mean that they shouldn't have already had a position on this. That's the problem, right?
You know,
so if you had effective leadership, you would have already known where your red lines are. You would have known it months ago. And you would have all had a meeting and you would have decided, if there's no paid family leave and there's no lowering drug prices, we're gonna vote no matter what else is in the bill. And then you would have insisted on that publicly at every turn, like Manchin and Sinema did. Manchin and Sinema said, if you ever raise $1 of taxes of our beloved rich, we vote no, it's a red line. Right? So they had red lines and we didn't. So that's a failure of leadership. Jamal, I thought that Congressman Bowman did a good job, and he's been on the show, and you could say I'm biased, etc. But I thought he did a much better job than almost any other Democrat, because he said I might not vote for it, whereas almost no other Democrat is willing to say that.
Well, Congresswoman Rashida Tlaib said hell no.
No, that's different. And I love that she said that. But she said hell no to voting for the
bipartisan bill
before voting for the reconciliation bill.
Okay,
right?
Fair enough. So I wanted to go to one more clip featuring Bowman, because I actually think the question that Don Lemon asks here is a good question. So let's take a look at that and we'll discuss.
Are you concerned that it looks like your party is blowing it and that Democrats can't govern? And you know that has huge ramifications.
Well, governing is about negotiation, right? And negotiating.
I understand that. That's true. No. I get that. That's not what I'm saying,
man.
I'm not talking about negotiating. But governing is also gaining control of the narrative.
In my district, Don, if I may interject briefly, in my district, people are excited that someone is finally fighting for them.
But your district is not the country. Your district is not the country. I understand that. You have to look out for your district. Hold on.
When you look at polling across the country, the American people are aligned with the Build Back Better Act.
Okay, but when you look at polling across the country, the American people don't know what Democrats are doing. They see that there's infighting among Democrats. The president's poll numbers are sinking.
So I can agree that we need to do a better job of communicating, of engaging with the districts that will benefit the most from the Build Back Better Act.
I saw that line of questioning by Don Lemon as an opportunity. Now, obviously, Don Lemon is like trying to place the blame on the progressives for the infighting, which is stupid, but it's still an opportunity. It's an opportunity for Bowman to say, yeah, Biden's approval ratings not so great. Maybe it's because he campaigned on promising the reversal of Trump-era tax cuts. He campaigned on improving people's lives. He campaigned on the provisions that are now stripped out of the budget reconciliation bill because he refuses to hold corrupt corporate Democrats in the Senate accountable. He refuses to play hardball, but he didn't do that. So like, I know none of them are gonna do that. So like, look, I'm being a little too harsh, I guess, but the point of Justice Democrats is to fight.
Yeah.
Is to fight.
Yeah.
Okay, the platitudes and the diplomacy, when there has been no diplomacy directed at them by Biden or the corporate Democrats, is disgusting.
Yeah. So look, let's now give you both sides of it, because both sides are correct, but one side is more correct than the other. So let me explain. So Bowman did a great job of going after Manchin and going after the interests that are funding him, okay? And he was alone in doing that on television. He went on CNN and he was willing to fight back. So give him credit on that. Don Lemon asked a normal, fair question. You guys are, not getting to a conclusion, and it would obviously be disastrous if you don't. He's got a progressive on the air, so he's gonna ask the progressive. So that's one side, to be fair to both of them, right? Now, on the other side is, well, but Don, You say, okay, you guys have been negotiating too long. Well, how do you resolve that? I would say, well, so Don, what do you want me to do? Just surrender? Okay, it's taking too long, so why? I agree. Then that's why Bowman went on to say it's Manchin's fault, because it is Manchin's fault. Manchin and Sinema are blocking the agenda. And so what are you telling me it's taking too long for? Why don't they get on board? So if you say to me, if I'm in the middle of negotiation and somebody's saying it's taking too long, so you should surrender. No, then you don't understand what negotiation is. And then the second giant kind of, not just misnomer, but misdirection that Don Lemon's doing, I think accidentally, which doesn't speak well of him either, to be honest, is that he says, well, the American people don't know what's in the bill. Well, Don, you're on air, why don't you tell them, okay? And so he says, people are confused by it. No, they're not. When you ask them policy by policy, it is overwhelmingly popular. Don, how about this? Negotiating drug prices has an 88% popularity. 9 out of 10 Americans are in favor of it. What's confusing about that? There's nothing confusing about that. Don, do you want to know why it's not in the bill? Because corporate donors killed it. Because drug companies paid off, legally bribed Manchin and Sinema, and by the way, also Biden and Pelosi. Now, if you're saying, hey, but Cenk, Anna's right, why don't Justice Democrats just say that? Well, first of all, we say it, Nina Turner says it on CNN, etc. But in Washington, there's a culture of never, ever criticize fellow Democrats, let alone Democratic leadership. It is considered heresy of the highest order. Do I think they should break that rule? Of course they should break that rule. You're getting killed in these negotiations. Now, having said that, to be fair, have Justice Democrats like Rashida Tlaib, AOC, and Jamal Bowman and Cori Bush gone farther than any other member of Congress in my lifetime in criticizing fellow Democrats? Yes. So now, however you want to take that, you take it. But to me, the number one problem there, at least Bowman went on air to fight back, which I didn't see from anyone else, okay? But the number one problem is corporate media, who's like, why don't you just surrender already to Manchin and Sinema? I'm so confused by what's in the bill. And of course, I'm not going to explain it to my audience. So I don't know, I'm just going to blame Democrats for not getting it done. By the way, how about Republicans? Every single Republican is against it. So why don't you ever talk about what monsters they are and how they're against 9 out of 10 Americans, including all of their voters?
Yep. All right. Look, we'll see how progressives play this. It's just not looking good. And right now we're going in this we're back in that argument about whether they can vote on the bipartisan infrastructure bill before the reconciliation bill. I don't care about that. The reconciliation bill as it stands today is not good. So we'll see what happens. We'll fill you guys in as we learn more, but that's where we're at right now.
Yeah, I just want to say one more thing. Look, the reason we're doing the petition is so that at least the progressive legislators realize, because they're in a Washington bubble. And everyone in the bubble is saying, you guys are radicals for even wanting 10% of this bill.
Who cares what Washington says?
No, because they're influenced by it. They don't realize it.
I know they are.
No, but they don't realize it. The reason you do the petition is so you go, hey, over here, guys, the rest of the country hates that you're giving in. Hates it. And we're saying, for God's sake, if you don't get paid family leave, you should vote no. Vote no, vote no. To them, they've literally never heard it. It's heresy to them. So Bowman is going out on a limb to say that he might not vote for it, because you guys, it's hard for them to understand the rest of the country, but it's also hard for us to understand the existence they're in. It's like they put these headphones on them in Washington, and all they ever hear is surrender, surrender, surrender. And if you don't, you're a very mean, offensive person who's going to destroy the Democratic Party. So that is the context. That's why you need to get involved. TYT.com/petitions. You see it right there, and we'll put the link down below. And let them know, no, you don't want this deal. If it doesn't even have paid family leave and it doesn't have any of these provisions, you don't want the deal. I guarantee you, they'll be actually genuinely surprised by that.
All right, when we come back from the break, Mitt Romney and Kyrsten Sinema cozy up to rub in our faces that all these important provisions were cut out of the reconciliation bill. We'll be right back.
You're about to watch some behind the scenes footage of the Young Turks. Ooh. Now, these are partial videos. If you want to get all of them, you become a member, go to tyt.com/join, and you'll get all the behind the scenes of me, Anna, John, JR, a little bit reality show like. tyt.com/join, and enjoy this.
You know what you're seeing behind me? Jersey, hold. Watch me flip this camera. However I flip it. Do I flip it like this? No, I just took a picture. I'm bitzing right now.
What?
Behind the scenes.
Oh, okay. For members? I don't have my face on.
She doesn't have her face on, folks. Oh, that's JR's ass right there.
Can't take 5 minutes off, can you?
No, I can't, Johnny. Bye. I said it was live stream, but I was lying. It's not a live stream. It's just for members. Bitsy, this is my cat. You know what his name is? Kiki Cat.
Animals are innocent.
Control room and the insanity is obviously there.
Right now, as you can see, I'm directing or tech directing.
I'm so happy to be here. This is what like a Labor Day beard looks like for Cenk. Man, you're a Young Turks viewer if you recognize me like this.
Oh, thank you. You are the one person in my life I would love to meet.
What's going on, guys? This is a Bitsy or a BTS or behind the scenes with Hassan Piker, aka Woke Bay.
Oh, hi, I didn't see you there.
I have finished my show, The Damage Report, and now I get into a really awkward time of the day.
When I'm sitting, the control room is right there. So I can see Bart.
This is the Pittsburgh office, by the way. I refer to often as the boiler room.
You see how it's ripped? Is it super unprofessional to wear that at a business meeting? Or am I like cool, rebel?
I just finished doing the power panel and I'm fired up.
What do you do for TYT?
Not a whole lot.
If you're frantically tweeting at us that something's broken, thank you, because I'm fixing it.
And thank you for being a TYT member.
Super last thing, because there's always got to be a super last thing. Oh, that was disastrous. This has been behind the scenes, behind the scenes.
Welcome to Indisputable. I'm your host, Dr. Rashad Richey. We got a lot happening today. But what do we do on this show? We tell the truth. You know why we tell the truth? Because the truth is simply indisputable.
Rashad, great to be here. Congratulations on the new show. And I gotta let everybody know that Rashad and I go way back.
Here's the pattern that we see in all of these Karen stories. They think they own stuff they do not own. Now, where does that come from? I don't know, maybe slavery. Maybe they think they should still own black people.
This is what happens when Karens weaponize the police.
When you're used to privilege, equality seems like oppression.
It hits you in a certain way when someone is holding you against your will, treating you like you're a criminal and you're an innocent person. This is something that black people face no matter where they are.
A stronger black economy lends itself to a stronger, greater economy. Don't think it's exclusive of you, it's inclusive of you.
What's your beef with critical race theory?
It adds more fuel to the fire of the racist tendencies that we already have.
We have a generation of problem solvers that can remedy the problem if they are properly taught what the problem is.
You know who created redlining in this country? It was a white liberal.
I don't give a damn who created it. If it's a racist policy, Shelley, here's what I don't know. I don't know. See, there you go filibustering, brother. You're scared of this truth, but you're gonna get it, though.
Climate is changing fundamentally, extremely, and non-linearly. It's becoming worse now. It's not when the levees burst that is the problem. It's in the anticipation of that.
So I hope every human being is safe. And by human beings, I do not include multinational corporations, especially the ones that started climate change in the first place.
What we're currently doing right now in cutting emissions is clearly not enough. There will be ramifications to what Trump is doing. I don't want people to suffer, but I feel like there's gonna be a lot of suffering because we have an imbecile as our leader.
All right, back on TYT, Cenk and Anna with you guys. Anna.
Well, the ruling class is now completely gloating about the fact that they succeeded in stripping down the budget reconciliation bill, otherwise known as Biden's Build Back Better agenda, including paid family leave, free community college, expansions to Medicare, and all sorts of things that would have improved people's lives. Here's Republican Senator Mitt Romney referencing the hit show Ted Lasso by giving corporate Democrat Kyrsten Sinema a cookie. Now, it's important to understand the context here, right? So if you don't watch Ted Lasso, you should know that what they're referencing is Ted Lasso, the coach that was hired to basically be the coach of a soccer team in the UK. He usually gives a cookie every day to the owner of that soccer team. Now, the owner of that soccer team specifically hired Ted Lasso because she knew that he would be an awful coach since he's never coached, European soccer before or football. And so she did it intentionally to sabotage her own team because that team happens to be the team that her ex-husband loved so much and she became in charge of after they divorced. So that's what they're referencing here. She is like laughing about the fact that she sabotaged her own political party in helping to destroy Biden's agenda.
So let's break it down further. So in the Capitol, they're having a grand old time. So paid family leave is out now. So if you have a baby and your company doesn't cover it, and less than 20% of companies cover it, you're gonna have to go back to work immediately, okay? Get out of the hospital, take off the robes, and get back into the factories, okay? So that's gone. And they're having biscuits for the boss. They're having a tea party in Washington. Here in the districts, we're dying. The drug prices are so high, you're rationing drugs, and that's leading to people dying. But they're having tea and biscuits at the Capitol. They're having a fabulous time. And she's playing dress up as she did the other day. She loves to play dress up. It's literally the Hunger Games. And then the second part of it is, okay, put aside the reference to Ted Lasso and it's a female boss, but even if it was a male boss, do you think that Mitt Romney would have done this with Bernie Sanders? Now, you all know that Bernie Sanders wouldn't have done this. Why? Because they're not on the same team. But Sinema and Romney are on the same team. Sinema's technically a Democrat and Romney's technically a Republican, but they're both on team corporate donors. And they both get paid by corporate donors, and that's why they're doing this. But guys, most importantly, they're laughing at you.
Yeah, that's exactly right. She knows that she sabotaged her own party, and they're making a reference to a show with a boss that tried to sabotage her own soccer team.
And she knows she's with the Republicans and killed every good provision in this bill on behalf of Mitt Romney, the wealthy, and the Republicans.
And just to show you Mitt Romney's tweet, he's the one who said, biscuits with the boss. And you guys know how I feel about people like Kyrsten Sinema. You think I think she deserves any cookies? I don't know. No cookies for you, I'm sorry. Cookies, no cookies for Sinema. In fact, far worse. She's awful, she should be primaried. I hope people don't forget about what happened this year with her completely turning her back on her own constituents. She needs to be primaried. The election isn't for another, 2 years?
Yeah. So guys, we've read you all her quotes. I'm kind of sick of reading her previous quotes to you guys. She claimed it was unconscionable not to negotiate drug prices, unconscionable not to do paid family leave, on and on. All the provisions she killed now. And as I said earlier in the show, they featured Anna on a New York Times podcast, and then I wound up listening to it. And the two reporters were like, I don't know why Sinema's doing this. It seems like it's the exact opposite of what she was saying before. I wonder why. Does she think Arizona's population is more Republican than the voting seems to indicate? A Democrat won recently. They're like, duh, come on, guys. And it's amazing. So they're not evil. They're not. But the other explanation is not very good either. They're in the job of reporting, and they don't know a thing about politics.
In fact, in the beginning of that podcast, they claimed that, Manchin's against these provisions because he's in a purple state, and
you're doing marketing for Manchin.
Yeah, that's not what's happening.
Well, don't you? No, but seriously, guys, you're reporters for the New York Times. Do you not know the polling out of West Virginia? In West Virginia, they want this bill desperately, and if you ask them about the specific policy proposals, it's even more popular. You know who wants lower drug prices? Of course, everybody, except one group of people, drug companies. It's not complicated. It's not remotely complicated. As I said earlier in the show, you know who is against the billionaire tax? Billionaires, and they took it out. Because the people they're trying to please are billionaires and corporations. So guys, we tell you facts and you can look them up. And by the way, the mainstream media, to their kind of credit, they also have the facts. They're not lying to you. They say they were arguing between 3.5 trillion and 1.5 trillion. And the compromise was at 1.75 trillion. So the corporate guys, Sinema, Manchin, and Biden and Pelosi totally won. They crushed the progressives. We're progressives, we wish it weren't the case, but our job is to tell you the truth. So what's the difference between us and mainstream media? They tell you the same numbers we tell you, then they frame it as, they had to do it because the people of West Virginia love higher drug prices.
Yeah.
And Manchin is serving the people of West Virginia. And then they like, an analysis for Kyrsten Sinema. Maybe she thinks Arizona turned more Republican. Well, their analysis sucks. You could be your own judge. You figure it out. Let's just do a quick exercise. Do you think 1.75 trillion is closer to 1.5 trillion or 3.5 trillion? Oh, I did the math on it. You could do the math at home too. That means the corporate goons won. Do you want paid family leave? Almost every one of you wants it. Do you want lower drug prices? Did you want free community college for 2 years? Did you want the Trump tax cuts to be repealed? You wanted all those things, including the Republican voters, including the tax cuts for the rich. You got none of it, but New York Times can't figure out. And then Romney and Sinema rub your faces in it. So every time you have a baby, or anybody in your family does it, you have to go right back to work. Manchin and Sinema and Romney and those goons did that to you, okay? Every time you can't pay for your drugs, Manchin, Sinema, Romney, and all those corporate goons, they did that to you on purpose, and they did it for money.
Remember when Romney was pretending like he was in favor of child tax credits?
Oh yeah, that was hilarious. Yeah, he's voting no on everything.
Of course. All right, well, look, let's switch gears. There's other news that I want to get to, including some positive news. It turns out that maybe there could be some accountability for senators engaging in insider trading, something that we would go to prison for if we engaged in. All right, so here's the details to this story involving Senator Burr. According to the Securities and Exchange Commission, Senator Richard Burr of North Carolina did in fact act on material, non-public information about the coronavirus pandemic, and then acted on that information by selling shares of stocks that he owned, and also hitting up his brother-in-law and telling him about the information that he had regarding the severity of coronavirus. Now, this is in the beginning of the pandemic. This is before the American people fully understand the severity of the pandemic. He gets a closed-door briefing on it because of the committees that he serves on, the Intelligence Committee and the Health Committee. And the first thing he does is he sells stocks because he knows that the economy is gonna get hit by the pandemic. So after Senator Richard Burr of North Carolina dumped more than $1.6 million in stocks in February of 2020, a week before the coronavirus market crash, he called his brother-in-law. They talked for just 50 seconds. The very next minute, Burr's brother-in-law, Gerald Foth, called his broker. On the day he received the call from Burr, Foth sold between $97,000 and $280,000 worth of shares in 6 companies, including several that were hit particularly hard in the market swoon and economic downturn. According to the SEC, the first broker he called after hearing from Burr was out of office, so he immediately called another broker to execute the trades. This is insider trading. Number one, as I've said a billion times on this show, public servants, especially public servants in Congress who are supposed to be making decisions about legislation that impact corporations, should not be invested in individual stocks. Okay, that's obviously a conflict of interest. Secondly, this is insider trading, and I'm glad that the SEC continued investigating Burr, but it doesn't stop at Burr. There are other lawmakers who engage in this, so I hope they're investigating them as well. Burr sold off a significant percentage of his stock shortly before the market tanked, unloading between $628,000 and $1.72 million of his holdings on February 13th in 33 separate transactions. The precise amount of his stock sales, more than $1.6 million, is also a new detail from this week's SEC filings. And so right now, what the SEC is trying to do is get Foth, Burr's brother-in-law, to comply with the subpoena, and he's refusing to do it. In fact, ProPublica called him for comment and he just hung up on them. So he's trying to avoid any and all questions. He's not complying with the subpoena. And it's also worth noting that he's working in the federal government. So in 2017, President Donald Trump appointed Foth to a 3-person board, a federal agency that facilitates labor management relations within the nation's railroad and airline industries. Guess what? President Joe Biden reappointed him to the board.
Because he's a loser. He's weak. He's super, super weak. Why the hell would you reappoint that guy? At a minimum, wouldn't you want him to cooperate with your own government before you reappointed him? And he's like, oh, no. Oh, he's a Republican and he helped to rip off the American people in the worst pandemic of our lifetimes? Reappoint him. Cowardice, total. Like, but Biden's, what's the difference between Biden and a Republican? It's a trick question. There is no difference. So, and he proves it every day in things like this. Okay, now the heart of it. So Burr gets the hearing, calls up his broker, sells all his stocks, especially the ones related to the coronavirus pandemic, to the tune of $1.6 million. Then he calls up his brother-in-law. His brother-in-law first tries to get a broker, can't find his own broker. He calls a second broker. This is all instantly. This is in the phone records, okay? Burr and his brother-in-law talked for under a minute. So obviously Burr called him and said, sell. Like Torah, okay? And so then his brother-in-law finds a second broker and sells his stocks. This is not complicated. You know that before the SEC, other federal investigators dropped it.
Yeah. And I'm sure you guys will all be shocked to find that the Senate Ethics Committee looked into it and they found no wrongdoing.
They're like, what, us ripping off the American taxpayers for our own enrichment? They're like, that's not the bug, that's the feature. They probably threw Burr a party. So look, is the SEC going to hold him accountable? This is the most clear-cut case of insider trading that I've probably ever seen in my life.
We'd all go to prison.
Yeah, Martha Stewart went to prison for far less, okay? And she's wealthy. If you did it, you would be eviscerated. It would ruin your life. You might go to jail for 10, 15 years, right? Burr brazenly comes out of the hearing, makes the call, dumps the stocks, calls his brother-in-law, he dumps the stocks. It's all on the record. The phone calls are on the record. The financial transactions are on the record. And everybody in power in Washington is like, I can't see it. Where is it? I don't see it. No, free to go. So let's see what the SEC does. But it would be shocking if any of the elites were ever held accountable for any of their crimes.
That does it for our first hour. But when we come back for hour two, we'll talk about Ted Cruz defending Nazi salutes at school boards. And also Tucker Carlson is leaning way in to disinformation regarding January 6th. And it's kind of terrifying because what he's putting out there is just gonna lead to more violence. We'll be right back.
What's happening? I'm Rashad Richey, host of Indisputable with Dr. Rashad Richey right here on TYT. Let me tell you what we do on Indisputable. We go beyond the headline. We make sure that you know the full context of the story. And we also highlight issues that are important to the everyday person. We're talking about criminal justice reform. We're talking about the climate. We're talking about what's happening right in your local community. We also highlight very important issues that are affecting all of us, like the economy, jobs, and we engage in transparent debates with people who may not think like me. We're living in a current social atmosphere where opinions are represented as facts and lies are represented as truth. Make sure you tune in to Indisputable with Dr. Rashad Richey, Monday through Friday, 2:30 p.m. Eastern Time, 11:30 a.m. Pacific Time.
Hi, I'm John, and I'm new to TikTok, but about 3 years ago, I started my daily political news show, The Damage Report, because I noticed this trend where every morning I was waking up to this tsunami of news that was just generally dreadful and horrifying and shocking, and I thought that if I could spend my time helping people to navigate this, serving as a bit of a life raft, pointing out which news is important and why, there are worse ways to spend your day. We're not an average news show, and we don't want our TikTok presence to be average either, so feel free to let us know what you'd like us to do on the platform, and maybe give us a follow at The Damage Report.
All right, Amazon Prime members, here's how you can subscribe for free on Twitch. Start by linking your Amazon Prime account to your Twitch account, and then click that little subscribe or resubscribe button below the stream on Twitch. Scroll down and select the subscribe free with Prime button, and then you're finished. Close out immediately and share your little subscription alert with the chat. Send a cute message along with it and bathe in the sweet, twitchy, Bezos-funded love. Hashtag Bezos Bucks.
Hey everyone, Mateo Scarapo here, author of Black Buck, which is Shop TYT's first fiction book ever. I'm honored. So, Black Buck is about a young man named Darren who's living in Bed-Stuy, Brooklyn. He lives with his mom, he has his girlfriend, he has his best friend, he has his neighborhood, and his neighborhood has him. Darren's also working at a Starbucks in Midtown Manhattan. And one day, this man, real suave and good looking, comes in and asks Darren to give him his regular. But for some reason, Darren says no. This man named Rhett Daniels, who's the CEO of a startup called Someone, located on the 36th floor of the same building, is impressed. And he invites Darren upstairs, and then he extends an offer to join his elite sales team. Darren reluctantly joins, and he soon realizes that he's not the only Black salesperson there. He's the only Black person in the entire company. So he goes through hell and back in order to make it to the top. And once there, he has status, money, power, but he says, you know what? I don't like being the token Black guy. So he hatches a plan to help other people of color infiltrate America's tech startup sales teams, redefining what it means to be a minority in the workplace. This book definitely, if you couldn't tell, touches on many things that are relevant to this moment that we're all living in right now, but it's also connected to the many moments in history that have come before today. I hope that you read it, I hope that you enjoy it, and if you want to order a copy, go to shoptyt.com. Thank you, be well, and happy 2021.
All right, back on TYT, Cenk and Anna with you guys. One member comment here from Little Mac McGee, who's been so great to us. He said, to my fellow frustrated TYT family, despair is the weapon of the establishment. Demoralizing us is the goal. No surrender, no retreat. I love that attitude. That's why I wanted to read it to you guys. And guess what? I needed it a little bit today. I was just telling Anna off air, like, I'm ready to give up on Congress because they got annihilated in these negotiations. If they get paid family leave, at least we did something positive in the world. But otherwise, enjoy your hearing aids because that's what you got from this bill. And so, but anyways, if we do surrender, then the corporations are thrilled. They'll get to rule us forever. Okay, Anna.
All right, let's get to the right wing. If you weren't depressed enough with Democrats, get ready. Right-wing Fox News host Tucker Carlson is engaging in the revisionism of the January 6th riots in our Capitol. In fact, back in the day, I remember thinking that Alex Jones was kind of unique in his lunacy. But no, now that flavor of lunacy is just the dominant gene within the Republican Party, within conservative media, and this is definitely a perfect example of that. Tucker Carlson, in a 3-part documentary series, claims that January 6th was a false flag operation. Let's watch.
Domestic war on terror is here, is coming after half of the country.
The helicopters have left Afghanistan, and now they've landed here at home.
And the left is hunting the right, staking them in Guantanamo Bay for American citizens, leaving them there to rot.
We are dealing with an insurgency in the United States.
Terrorism from white supremacy is the most lethal threat to homeland.
I've been told that I'm a white nationalist. Me.
FBI, they've begun to fight a new enemy in a new war on terror.
Not Al-Qaeda, white supremacy.
False flags have happened in this country. One of which may have been January 6th.
His truth is marching on.
No, that was pretty incredible. To use the failures of a right-wing administration, the George Bush administration, as somehow a playbook that the left is using against the right. That is amazing. And by the way, listen to that rhetoric. The left is hunting the right. They want to take them to Guantanamo Bay.
No, they seem to say that they already were Guantanamo Bay.
You're right. That the left is taking the right to Guantanamo. Really? What's the evidence for that? That's amazing.
So I think I know what he's doing here, and I think what he's doing is really important, which I get to in a second. But Colby Hall at Mediaite actually had really good reporting on this. And one of the questions he asked was, are there any executives left at Fox News? Is there anybody at home and in management? Or will they let Tucker Carlson say anything on their air? I mean, which right-wingers in Guantanamo Bay? What an outrageous, preposterous lie. January 6th was a false flag operation? That's cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. I mean, Alex Jones would blush at that theory. He wouldn't, he would love it. But now look, and I'll get to why. But more reporting from Colby Hall. He said he talked to a producer, a mid-level executive, and an on-air talent at Fox News, and even they're shocked. One person said this is too far, way too far. That's a person working at Fox News. And Fox News personality says, how did this get approved? And so there used to be rules on television. You know, they say, oh, Facebook and social media is so evil, they'll just let anybody say anything. That's the #1 host on cable news saying outrageous lies. But guys, the most important part of it, the most dangerous part of it, is that it works.
Yep.
And Colby talked about how he grew up in Kansas, a little bit outside of Wichita, and he says he calls his buddies back home, and he says they're ready. They think they got to fight the government, and they got weapons, and that's his friends. Okay, so. And it's in Washington, they're not getting it. They think, oh, well, agree to disagree, 50-50, and we have to treat everybody with respect. No. These media guys on the right wing, both the websites and the thing and on Fox News, they're egging people on to do actual violence. That's why they have a nonstop reference to the Second Amendment and how you're the victims of the government. You see all the helicopters, the government's coming to get you. So what would you do if the government's gonna get you and you got your guns? You would shoot and kill people in the government, including the military, the police. By the way, what did they do on January 6th? They attacked the police. And Tucker Carlson and Fox News is cheering them on while pretending that Blue Lives Matter. It is stunning, the hypocrisy and the insanity.
No, but it goes beyond just people in the government, which is bad enough. I'm not trying to minimize that. No, they just use the left.
Yeah.
The left is coming for you. They're sending you to Gitmo. It's amazing, because to be honest with you guys, I never really think about these people, right? Like, what they did was awful, and I want them held accountable for it. We're trying to get people health care. Like, I honestly, maybe it's an indictment on me for not constantly thinking about the right wing, but this crazy idea of ooh, the left, they're conspiring to get you, and they're gonna send you to Gitmo, and oh, they want to murder you. No, you guys are the ones talking about murdering us constantly, salivating over it.
They're like, everybody grab your guns, get ready to kill the left. You see how the left is violent? So, but look, percentage.
Sorry to interrupt you. I got to jump in with one other thing, okay? So Kyle Rittenhouse. Is a 17-year-old who had a gun that was illegal. A 17-year-old in that state is not allowed to have possession of a gun, okay? And the right wing keeps responding to us with, oh, but the cops in Kenosha, Wisconsin said that he purchased the gun in Wisconsin and he didn't cross state lines with it. Oh, you mean the same cops who knew that he shot 3 people, killing 2 of them, and let him go home that night? Those cops? Is that the police department you're referring to? They act as if the very people who carry out injustice in this country are the ones who should be trusted as credible sources.
And then they say if they come to your door, kill them. What?
It's insane.
None of it makes any sense.
They brag about murdering people, and then once they might face criminal prosecution for murdering people, they're like, no. And Kyle Rittenhouse is a good guy. I mean, he's the victim.
So Anna, that sets up a vicious cycle. So they're telling the right wing to go do violence, and then after you do violence, you're the victim, which should cause you to do more violence against the state, against the government, against the cops, against the military, against the left. What they're doing is, okay, so why is Tucker doing it? Tucker's a very smart guy. You see me call other Republicans dumb all the time. I'm not at all shy about it, okay? But Tucker's very smart. And so does Tucker know he's crossing a line? Absolutely. What he's doing is, First of all, he's seeing how far he can go on Fox News because he knows the right-wing audience loves it. Remember, Tucker Carlson used to be honestly a ratings failure at CNN, MSNBC, and everywhere that he went. He had like 12 TV shows all across cable news, and every one of them failed. But when he started egging on the right wing to get angrier and more violent, that worked, and he became #1. So he's doing that for money and fame and power. But then the second reason is he thinks, now we're at my conjecture. All that was facts. My conjecture is he thinks, I'm gonna go so far until even Fox News has to fire me, because I'm gonna break laws, and when I do, they're gonna get sued, just like happened with Dominion on the voting stuff. And when they fire me, perfect, then I'm the ultimate victim. I was #1 on cable, most popular, and then I became a victim, and then you run for office. You run for president, okay?
Yeah.
And you run for president and you go, remember, I was the one hero that stood up for all of you. What Tucker has correctly assessed is that the right-wing voters have lost their minds. And he thinks they're conspiracy driven, so he feeds them conspiracies. He thinks they're prone to violence, so he eggs on their violence. And he thinks if I give them all that, they'll make me the leader. And once they do, all we gotta do is win one last election. And then we'll say, oh, I dismantled the deep state. Now vigilantes can run wild, you're above the law. If anyone in the left objects, we either imprison them or shoot them. Second Amendment rights, we're always the victims, no matter how many people we kill. And so this is what they're gonna do. And they're already doing it. There's already shootings left and right. There's people showing up with trucks full of bombs in Washington, D.C. They're all right-wingers. And then Tucker turns around and says, the left wants to do violence.
But don't worry, we do have a line of defense. It's the flaccid Democratic Party.
Yeah, that's why. And by the way, Tucker has also correctly assessed that the Democrats are pathetic. And he would eat any person who does this strategy, if they win one presidential election, it could end the country and rule as an authoritarian leader and end the great American experiment and be done with democracy. And then he would be the most powerful person on earth, and you couldn't get rid of him. And if you were that kind of authoritarian leader and you were smart, oh my God, you would be so happy that you have opponents like the Democratic Party. You would think this is the perfect time to strike. These guys are so pathetic and weak. They couldn't beat anybody. I'll just steamroll them. What's really, really frightening is it's not a bad plan.
All right, we got to take a break. When we come back, we've got Ted Cruz just brazenly, openly defending Nazi salutes. And there is a little bit of relief in the rundown today because Katie Porter, yes, she has another line of questioning for oil and gas executives. Yes, there are props involved, and yes, you're gonna love it. So come right back, we've got those stories for you and more.
You're about to watch some behind the scenes footage of the Young Turks. Ooh. Now these are partial videos. If you want to get all of them, you become a member, go to tyt.com/join, and you'll get all the behind the scenes of me, Anna, John, JR, a little bit reality show like tyt.com/join, and enjoy this.
You know what you're seeing behind me? Jersey, hold. Watch me flip this camera. However I flip it. Do I flip it like this? No, I just took a picture. I'm bitzing right now.
What?
Behind the scenes.
Oh, okay. For members? I don't have my face on.
She doesn't have her face on, folks. Oh, that's JR's ass right there.
You can't take 5 minutes off, can you?
No, I can't, Johnny. Bye. I said it was live stream, but I was lying. It's not a live stream. It's just for members. Bitsy, this is my cat. You know what his name is? Kiki Cat.
Animals are innocent.
Control room and the insanity is obviously there.
Right now, as you can see, I'm directing or tech directing.
I'm so happy to be here.
This is what like a Labor Day beard looks like for Cenk. Man, you're a Young Turks viewer if you recognize me like this.
Such a big fan.
Oh, thank you. You are the one person in my life I would love to meet.
What's going on, guys? This is a Bitsy or a BTS or behind the scenes with Hassan Piker, AKA Woke Bay.
Oh, hi, I didn't see you there.
I have finished my show, The Damage Report, and now I get into a really awkward time of the day.
When I'm sitting
The control room is right there, so I can see Bart.
This is the Pittsburgh office, by the way, referred to often as the boiler room.
You see how it's ripped? Is it super unprofessional to wear that at a business meeting? Or am I like cool, rebel?
I just finished doing the power panel and I'm fired up.
What do you do for TYT?
Not a whole lot.
If you're frantically tweeting at us that something's broken, thank you, because I'm fixing it.
And thank you for being a TYT member.
Super last thing, because there's always got to be a super last thing. Oh, that was disastrous. This has been behind the scenes, behind the scenes.
Welcome to Indisputable. I'm your host, Dr. Rashad Richey. We got a lot happening today. But what do we do on this show? We tell the truth. You know why we tell the truth? Because the truth is simply indisputable.
Rashad, great to be here. Congratulations on the new show. And I gotta let everybody know that Rashad and I go way back.
Here's the pattern that we see in all of these Karen stories. They think they own stuff they do not own. Now, where does that come from? I don't know, maybe slavery. Maybe they think they should still own black people.
This is what happens when Karens weaponize the police.
When you're used to privilege, equality seems like oppression.
It hits you in a certain way when someone is holding you against your will, treating you like you're a criminal and you're an innocent person. This is something that black people face no matter where they are.
A stronger black economy lends itself to a stronger, greater economy. Don't think it's exclusive of you, it's inclusive of you.
What's your beef with critical race theory?
It adds more fuel to the fire of the racist tendencies that we already have.
We have a generation of problem solvers that can remedy the problem if they are properly taught what the problem is.
You know who created redlining in this country? The white liberal.
I don't give a damn who created it. If it's a racist policy, Shelley, here's what I don't know. I don't know. See, there you go filibustering, brother. You're scared of this truth, but you're gonna get it though.
Climate is changing fundamentally, extremely, and non-linearly. It's becoming worse now. It's not when the levees burst that is the problem. It's in the anticipation of that.
So I hope every human being is safe. And by human beings, I do not include multinational corporations, especially the ones that started climate change in the first place.
What we're currently doing right now in cutting emissions is clearly not enough. There will be ramifications to what Trump is doing. I don't want people to suffer, but I feel like there's gonna be a lot of suffering because we have an imbecile as our leader.
All right, back on TYT, Cenk and Anna with you guys. Look, lots of people writing in about despair because of the situation. We never give up. That's why we're building a change machine. Participate if you can, tyt.com/change. We're gonna do it. We're gonna go to the streets. We're gonna do it peacefully. We're gonna do it politically, but we're gonna fight back. I'm never gonna surrender to these corporate goons. All right, Anna.
The first time child labor was challenged in this country was in 1881. And it wasn't until 1938 that federal legislation was passed to regulate child labor. So things that are worth fighting for take a long time, but just take a look at what it took in the lead up to the New Deal, right? It wasn't just electoral politics. There was a lot of labor power behind it, and I think we don't need to reinvent the wheel, we just need to get organized. All right, let's get to the next story. So Cancun Senator Ted Cruz defended a parent who carried out a Nazi salute during a school board meeting. Now he did this during a Senate Judiciary Committee hearing where the DOJ was involved. You have Merrick Garland there, the Attorney General. And I just thought that this was a fascinating exchange. So let's watch.
I did a quick count just sitting here. During this hearing, I counted 20 incidents cited. Of the 20, 15 on their face are nonviolent. They involve things like insults. They involve a Nazi salute. That's one of the examples. My God, a parent did a Nazi salute at a school board because he thought the policies were oppressive. General Garland is doing a Nazi salute at an elected official. Is that protected by the First Amendment?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
It would have been, I would argue a lot better for Ted Cruz to be that fired up when the people of Texas were dying as a result of their privatized, deregulated energy grid. But he decided to take a little trip to Cancun. 230 Texans died as a result of that. But apparently the only thing that fires him up is defending Nazi salutes during school board meetings. So Cruz accused Merrick Garland of directing the FBI to go investigate parents as domestic terrorists. The memo contains no mention of domestic terrorists at all. It asked law enforcement to look into threats and intimidation against school officials in response to the National School Boards Association's letter to the president last month, asking for federal assistance to address the growing number of threats and violence. And we've shown you examples of that, of those threats and that violence. And we also covered how there's right-wing money funding those efforts during those school board meetings in an effort to get school board members to resign so they can take control. So who knows how many of those organizations and right-wing millionaires and billionaires are funding Ted Cruz to just openly and brazenly defend Nazi salutes. But it is what it is. That's who Ted Cruz is.
So look, you can get past the Nazi salute thing. He's saying, hey, they're protesting tyranny and they're against the Nazis and they think the school boards are Nazis. Yes, our school boards across America, well-known fascists. But that's what the right wing is telling their voters, their audiences, and they're egging them on. Oh, go fight the local school board. Oh my God, they're gonna make you wear masks to protect fellow kids. They're trying to protect the lives of kids. They're Nazis, and they really believe it. They're 100% sold in on it, etc. But put that aside for a second. So Cruz and Cotton made a giant display. Tom Cotton is a Republican senator from Arkansas, about, oh my God, they're so mad. You are trying to get the crack down on innocent parents who are just verbally objecting based on policy, and you're gonna put them in jail. Okay, show us one instance where the Justice Department did that.
Just one.
Just one. Just one. Where the Justice Department under Merrick Garland took a parent who complained verbally about and just that did nothing at all physical, did no threats, but vociferously complained, right?
Right.
Which they have every right to.
And he did the Nazi salute.
Okay, and the Nazi salute.
Yeah.
So is that guy in jail?
No.
No, he's not in jail. Are any of those parents in jail? No, they're not in jail.
Is he being investigated?
Okay.
No.
No. So it's a fiction. It's not arguable. It's not he said, she said.
Manufactured.
It's totally manufactured. It's faux outrage, and so that's the theatrics that they do. And Ted Cruz went to Harvard and Princeton or whatever he went to, right? He knows he's just a bad actor. He wanted to be in Hollywood, and so there's a lot of Republican politicians who are genuinely dumb, Louis Gohmert, and among many others. Okay, who are like, oh, I don't know, school boards are Nazis now. Okay, I got the Nazis. The Nazis try to protect kids, right? No, they didn't. They did quite the opposite, right? But Cruz knows, so he does his fake acting, and he's like, I will tell you something. Shut up. Okay, but now the last part of this is this. So the Justice Department is saying, if you physically threaten or assault school board members, we're gonna hold you to account because you're breaking the law. So my question back to Ted Cruz and Tom Cotton would be, do you not want us to do that? You think that if somebody attacks a school board member, we should just let him go?
I want to know what Rand Paul thinks. I know Rand Paul has some strong feelings in regard to physical assault.
That's right. No, because they're saying we don't want the Justice Department looking into assaults at all of school board members,
right,
or physical threats. Rand Paul got his ass handed to him by his neighbor, which I don't think neighbors should have done that. I think it's terrible. Okay, so but. Is the new law, according to Republicans, just everybody fights and the government can't do anything about it? There's no arrest, there's no rule of law. So, but Democrats are weak. So Merrick Garland sat there and took all this abuse, and then he's told by Biden and the others, never, ever, ever fight back against Republicans. Just bow your head and just sit there and get yelled at. And so what's the image that Americans are left with? It seems like the Republicans are justifiably outraged, and the Democrats never fight back. So I guess the Democrats are wrong and the Republicans are right.
You're so right about that. But like, I also want to just go back to how infuriated Republicans were, conservatives were, when someone who doesn't like Tucker Carlson so much quietly approached him at, I think, like some sort of like fishing store or something, and told him that he doesn't like him.
Yeah, he said he was full of crap, I think, in Montana.
Yeah, said that he's full of crap, didn't threaten him.
Dan Bailey.
Yeah, Dan Bailey told him he's a bad guy. And the right wing was like, this is unacceptable. How dare he, right? Or American citizens approaching lawmakers who are engaging in bad behavior and letting them know how they feel about it. Oh my God, they're approaching them while they're enjoying their dinner, how dare they? But school board members getting threatened, that's okay. Because school boards, they're full of terrible people who want to actually educate your kids about things that make them uncomfortable.
So, by the way, do we have evidence on our side? You can go back and watch our videos. There's at least half a dozen cases where they very specifically threaten violence against these poor people. And that is a violation of the law. That is, threatening violence is also assault. So if right wing says now we don't want laws, we hate laws, we just want to be able to threaten and assault anyone we like. Okay, that's a fascinating twist in American history, but that is where they're headed. But look, so I want to be constructive, okay? By the way, I would tell you a funny quick story first. We have this great shirt called the Anti-Vaxxer Club at shoptyt.com. And that's my favorite shirt. I wear it around. Here in LA, it's easy. People love the shirt generally. But I ran into a Republican, he didn't like the shirt. And he's giving me a dirty look about the Anti-Vaxxer Club, right? I'm like, dude, you guys are in favor, your whole thing is freedom of speech. Freedom of speech. I like your shirt. I like your shirt. Shut up about it. I don't care. It's called freedom of speech. Look into it.
He really told you he didn't like your shirt?
No, he gave me a stink eye. I'm exaggerating. Okay, but he gave me a significant stink eye. Okay, so we'll keep it real here. So now, what constructive critique? What should Merrick Garland have done? Senator Cruz, you keep asking me about things that we're not doing. So I want to ask you, what we actually did do was say that if anyone commits a crime, that they should be investigated. So I want to ask you, is it your position that people who commit crimes should not be investigated?
It's so easy.
So easy. And he won't do it because he's a Democrat.
Oh God, Democrats are the worst. Okay, let's give you guys some positive news, okay? Let's give you a little Katie Porter, because she always puts me in a good mood. I love when she does this. So, Katie Porter was grilling oil and gas executives in regard to these corporations, these fossil fuel companies getting leases on public lands in order to do their drilling and their fracking. And she's sick of it. You can tell she's sick of it because this time, as she always does, she brought along props. These are unique props. I love the props, but she also brought that fire with her as well. So let's watch.
Mr. Summers, there are 7,700 permits unused. How many acres of public land are already leased by fossil fuel companies and not even used yet? Just available for drilling whenever you decide.
Congresswoman, again, I think you have a fundamental misunderstanding as to how this process works and the time and resources.
Reclaiming my time. The answer is 13.9 million acres. To visualize how much land that is, if each grain of rice were 1 acre, that would be 479 pounds of rice. The American Petroleum Institute even opposed pausing more leasing on our lands. They even sued to stop it because apparently this acreage wasn't enough. Mr. Wirth, you serve on the American Petroleum Institute's executive committee. Do you support a pause on new oil and gas leases on federal land?
We're about to get to their answers in just a minute, but no more Mr. Rice Guy, okay?
Oh,
I'm so into that.
Zinger.
I love it. I love it. It gives me life, especially in a moment when I have so little faith in Congress. It's nice to see that fire.
Yeah, Anna pointed this out while we're watching. The license plate says oversight. I love it. So she did several props. Look, I hate goofy politicians, and I've seen them use props in the most ridiculous, dumbest ways. I remember Mike Lee did this thing with a Reagan on a dinosaur with a machine gun. It didn't make any sense at all, right? But her visuals are excellent because it's hard to envision that much land, to give you a sense of God, how much land is that? And when she does that visual, you're like, oh, I get it, that's a lot. She did another thing, we got more for you guys, but she did another one in this set of hearings with M&Ms. And she talked about how this Shell was bragging about how much they put aside for renewable energy. And then she filled up this cup with M&Ms, okay, this clear jar with M&Ms. And then she demonstrated how much they put in for renewables. And it was like this much, okay? Because that's what the actual numbers are. She did it based on the numbers. And she's like, so are you saying that this is like transformative? And she's like, All right, that's putting thought into it. That's caring about your job. And that's showing the American people in a way they can understand it and holding the powerful accountable. If every representative was like Katie Porter, oh my God, you know what we'd have? We'd have a democracy.
So this oil executives, gas executives, they play this little game, this trick. And I'm sure you've seen some of their commercials where they're like, we care about the environment. That's why we're investing in this, and we're gonna be carbon neutral in this year. We support actions for climate change. No, obviously they don't. And what I love in this next part of the video is how she's asking them point blank, do you support ending these leases? And here's what they had to say.
Congresswoman, access to resource in this country is essential to ensure the energy security of our country and
reclaiming my time. Mr. Lawler, do you support a pause?
The administration, and it's our hope that the pause ends soon. We think it's important to go
reclaiming
forward.
My time. Thank you for your answer. The answer there is no. Mr. Woods, do you support a pause on new federal and gas leases?
No.
Ms. Watkins, do you support a pause on new federal and gas leases?
No, I do not, because I think it's important.
You already have 13.9 million acres. This is equivalent to Maryland and New Jersey combined. How much more do you need? How much more acreage? You have 2 of our 50 states at a price that makes the Louisiana purchase look like a ripoff, and you're not even using it. What more do you need? Iowa, Colorado, Virginia? Our public land belongs to the American people, not to big oil. When you lobby and you sue so that you could take more of our public land, you're saying too much is never enough. The American people are tired of this charade.
Okay, I want to give you 2 more pieces of context there. Number 1, if you're wondering why she keeps yelling at them, reclaiming my time, it's not just that she's being a tough prosecutor, it's that they usually have very limited time. So a lot of the witnesses run out the clock, they filibuster, so they'll give you a long answer, and a lot of the other politicians totally let them do it. Not Katie Porter. She's like, reclaiming my time.
Love
okay,
it.
I gotta get through this, and I gotta hold you accountable. Oversights on my car. Okay, so, and now the other piece of context is how unprecedented this is.
Yes.
I've been covering politics for a quarter of a century, and these people try, come in and out, and they laugh at these politicians because nobody ever holds them accountable.
Yes.
Because these corporate executives run Congress. So that's why they're always shocked at what Katie Porter does. They look around like, wait, didn't we buy all of these? Oh, she doesn't take corporate PAC money. Damn it, okay? And so the first person I saw doing this effectively was Elizabeth Warren. And so some of you wonder why, hey, you were an Elizabeth Warren supporter in some ways, right? And I ultimately wound up endorsing Bernie Sanders in 2020. But the reason why I thought about Elizabeth Warren, because I saw her doing this. And Katie Porter is good allies with her as well. And Warren, I know for a fact, when she first did it, and they went into caucus, the rest of her Democratic senator colleagues yelled at her and said, how dare you? That's our funders. You're gonna cost us money and you're gonna cost us elections. So that I want you to understand the courage that it takes. Because to me and you, we love it, and it looks like, why doesn't everybody do that? The reason they don't do that is because there's a world of pressure in Washington from the donors, but then that also leaks into the Democratic colleagues who yell at you saying you're hurting all of them. No, you're helping the people you need to help the most, the voters. So thank you.
And I want to note something that's really, really important. Katie Porter is a congresswoman representing Orange County, California, which used to be further to the right, but now is more of like a purple district. And I bring that up because while the corporate media would have you believe that Joe Manchin is stripping the reconciliation bill of all the popular provisions because he's a senator from a red state. No, it's all BS. Because clearly these are issues that resonate with voters across the board. And right here, Katie Porter knows that holding corporations and their greed accountable is something that actually represents the best interests of her constituents, whether they're Democratic voters or Republican voters or independent voters.
And her voters love it. While moderate, so-called moderate, in reality, conservative and corporate Democrats lost all over the country in the last election, Katie Porter won in a purple district because she fights for her voters.
Exactly.
Not complicated.
All right, we have a fun segment coming up next. So we're gonna take a brief break, and when we come back, a conservative host engages in one of the best self-owns I've seen in a long time. And also, photo ops at a funeral, yes or no? We're gonna ask you to chime in. We'll be right back.
What's happening? I'm Rashad Richey, host of Indisputable with Dr. Rashad Richey right here on TYT. Let me tell you what we do on Indisputable. We go beyond the headline. We make sure that you know the full context of the story. And we also highlight issues that are important to the everyday person. We're talking about criminal justice reform. We're talking about the climate. We're talking about what's happening right in your local community. We also highlight very important issues that are affecting all of us, like the economy, jobs, and we engage in transparent debates with people who may not think like me. We're living in a current social atmosphere where opinions are represented as facts and lies are represented as truth. Make sure you tune in to Indisputable with Dr. Rashad Richey, Monday through Friday, 2:30 p.m. Eastern Time, 11:30 a.m. Pacific Time.
Hi, I'm John, and I'm new to TikTok, but about 3 years ago, I started my daily political news show, The Damage Report, because I noticed this trend where every morning I was waking up to this tsunami of news that was just generally dreadful and horrifying and shocking, and I thought that if I could spend my time helping people to navigate this, serving as a bit of a life raft, pointing out which news is important and why, there are worse ways to spend your day. We're not an average news show, and we don't want our TikTok presence to be average either, so feel free to let us know what you'd like us to do on the platform, and maybe give us a follow at The Damage Report.
All right, Amazon Prime members, here's how you can subscribe for free on Twitch. Start by linking your Amazon Prime account to your Twitch account, and then click that little subscribe or resubscribe button below the stream on Twitch. Scroll down and select the subscribe free with Prime button, and then you're finished. Close out immediately and share your little subscription alert with the chat. Send a cute message along with it, and bathe in the sweet, twitchy, Bezos-funded love. Hashtag Bezos Bucks.
Hey everyone, Matteo Scarapore here, author of Black Buck, which is Shop TYT's first fiction book ever. I'm honored. So, Black Buck is about a young man named Darren who's living in Bed-Stuy, Brooklyn. He lives with his mom, he has his girlfriend, he has his best friend, he has his neighborhood, and his neighborhood has him. Darren's also working at a Starbucks in Midtown Manhattan. And one day, this man, who's real suave and good looking, comes in and asks Darren to give him his regular. But for some reason, Darren says no. This man named Rhett Daniels, who's the CEO of a startup called Someone, located on the 36th floor of the same building, is impressed. And he invites Darren upstairs, and then he extends an offer to join his elite sales team. Darren reluctantly joins, and he soon realizes that he's not the only black salesperson there. He's the only black person in the entire company. So he goes through hell and back in order to make it to the top. And once there, he has status, money, power, but he says, you know what? I don't like being the token black guy. So he hatches a plan to help other people of color infiltrate America's tech startup sales teams, redefining what it means to be a minority in the workplace. This book definitely, if you couldn't tell, touches on many things that are relevant to this moment that we're all living in right now. But it's also connected to the many moments in history that have come before today. I hope that you read it. I hope that you enjoy it. And if you want to order a copy, go to shoptyt.com. Thank you, be well, and happy 2021.
TYT, Cenk and Anna with you guys. All right, more news.
Let's have a little bit of fun. I enjoyed this video. So, British conservative talk radio host Mike Graham brought on a climate activist to discuss recent protests that shut down British roadways. Now, the host here thought that he was gonna pull a fast one on the climate activist, but it didn't work out so well. Let's watch.
Morning, Mike.
Oh, hello. What are you glued to, Cameron?
Just your screen, unfortunately.
Unfortunately? What do you do for a living, Cameron?
I'm a carpenter.
A carpenter, right. So how safe is that for the climate?
Well, I work with timber, which is a much more sustainable material rather than concrete. I also
you work with trees that have been cut down then, don't you?
It's a sustainable building practice.
How is it sustainable if you're killing trees?
Because it's regenerative, you can grow trees.
Right. Well, you can grow all sorts of things, can't you?
Well, you can't grow concrete.
You can. See you, Cameron. Cheerio. That was Cameron. He grows trees and then cuts them down and then makes things from them. Brilliant. Marvellous. I don't think I ever want to talk to any of those people.
That was amazing. No, I mean, look, the British have a classier way of embarrassing themselves, right?
Congratulations to them.
But you're still embarrassing yourself. And I love the way Cameron the carpenter, even if I know nothing about him other than his name and that he's a carpenter, like I already love him. But my favorite part was when the radio host is like, yeah, you can. You can grow concrete. And he's just like, I'm not even gonna entertain that. I'm not even gonna answer it.
Yeah, that's what made it so wonderfully awkward.
So good.
When he just like looked at him like, like if you say so, brother, it's your funeral. Keep going if you like. So he said, the host said at the end, I don't even want to talk to these people. Then why'd you bring him on? He was your guest. And if you're wondering who started the hostilities, that was the whole interview, by the way. It was under a minute. You're not missing anything. We didn't cut it out. It's not edited, okay? And he said in the beginning, what do you glue to now? Because climate protesters in the UK are gluing themselves to the roads sometimes and other things to block the highways, etc., to make a point. And so that's why he started out by attacking him. And that's why Cameron the carpenter was like, to your set, unfortunately. And then the guy takes offense. What are you taking offense for? You're the one who started the fight. And that's true of conservatives everywhere. They'll start a fight, and then the minute you push back a little bit, they're like, oh, I'm the victim, I'm the victim. Well, grow some concrete and some balls and and actually have a logical argument. But isn't it interesting, guys, that all across the world, conservatives are all over the media? Because corporations that have a lot of money wind up putting a lot of conservatives on air to tell you how great corporations are.
Yeah, so I'm actually really grateful for that exchange, not only because it was entertaining and fun to watch, but because I don't know everything. So I actually had never thought about sustainable materials for building, right? Like, of course I've thought about it, but not in this context. And so I think that, for people who don't want to research it and you just ask them, what's the best way to build buildings or whatever, I get it. Like the idea of cutting down trees might seem counterintuitive to people. So this exchange made me want to look into it more. I'm like, oh, timber. He says he uses timber. I want to know if that's really a more sustainable material. So let me give you the details of what we learned, okay? So concrete actually is not the most sustainable material to use. Living concrete made from, by the way, after the exchange, the host posted this: living concrete made from bacteria used to create replicating bricks.
Yeah, it happens all the time.
Yeah, all the time. Totally.
That's how most concrete is made. Yeah. And can I just say real quick, the host is the one who put up the clip in the first place, thinking he got Cameron. And when he was shocked to find out the rest of the world was like, you fool. So he's like, oh yeah, you can grow concrete with bacteria.
Yeah, but that's not usually the concrete that's being used for building materials, right? So here's how concrete is really made. And again, I had never thought about this before. So if you don't know this stuff, it's okay to admit it. Don't be a pompous moron like that guy. Concrete is a mixture of two components, aggregate and paste. The paste is made up of Portland cement and water, which then binds with sand, gravel, or crushed stone. Okay, so that's not a renewable thing, right? So that's why it's not as sustainable as timber. Now, what's up with timber, right? What is up with timber? Well, wood is versatile, organic, and it is renewable. Yes, it's regenerative, as mentioned by Cameron in that interview. Also, a new way of using wood has put the material back in the spotlight. The hype is focused on structural timber, or as it's more popularly known, mass timber, short for massive timber. In a nutshell, it involves sticking pieces of softwood, generally wood like pine, spruce, or fir, but also species such as birch, ash, or beech together to form larger pieces. And so it's just really interesting because not only is it more sustainable, but combining those types of woods happens to make the structure stronger and more sound. So I thought that was really fascinating stuff.
Yeah. So look, I'm familiar with massive timber.
Oh, are you?
Okay. But I should have known that you. I should have known that you were gonna love this story, not just for the own, but for the wood.
Totally.
Because Craig and I were joking around before the show. We have a new wooden thing out there, bench or whatever. I'm like, did Anna build it? Because you love woodwork, right? But I want to say one last thing about the interview. Look, I don't know if the British have, it feels like their average bloke's a little bit smarter than ours here in America. Okay, it's probably not the case, but
I think it's probably the case.
But it feels that way. And mainly it's a comment about America than it is more about the UK. But the point is that he underestimated him. He thought, I'm such a clever talk show host, and I'm gonna bring on this average guy, and I'm gonna steamroll him. Well, no, you're not anywhere near as smart as you thought you were, and don't underestimate carpenters.
Yes.
I know 2 other carpenters, actually now 3. You're kind of a carpenter with your woodwork.
I would never dare take on that label. Okay, I don't deserve it.
She's an amateur carpenter.
I'm an amateur, yes.
Okay, but there are 2 professional carpenters that were also underestimated. One of them is Bernie Sanders, who was a carpenter earlier in his life. And the other is a guy named Jesus. Okay. And he seemed to change the world a little bit, and he was also underestimated.
Yep. All right, well, let's get to our last story of the day. And this one's totally out of left field, but it's fun. So a social media influencer is receiving a lot of backlash after she decided to engage in a photo op during her own father's funeral while his casket was open. And yes, she took the images right in front of that open casket. So Jane Rivera is her name. These are the images.
And fame is her game.
So look, I shared my thoughts about this on Twitter, and the only question I had was, is having kids really worth it? Right? You give them everything, and this is how they repay you. But nonetheless, she also filmed a video. I want to get to that, so let's just quickly watch.
There he goes. Wow. You and your brothers help carry you. There you go.
Bye, Papa. Love you, Papa.
Okay, so she loves her papa, so they had a good relationship. I was thinking, I don't know, maybe we're not familiar with their relationship. Maybe he was awful to her and she's, no, it seems like they had a good relationship. Also, the caption in her Instagram photos was this: butterfly, fly away, RIP Poppy, you were my best friend, a life well lived, hashtag rest in peace, Poppy, veteran, PTSD, funeral, hashtag never forgotten. You guys get the point. Okay, so then it turns out that Instagram, out of nowhere, she claims, just suspended her account. And this was after she posted these images and received a lot of backlash. Jane Rivera of Florida told NBC News in an interview that she understood the negative reception, but clarified that the photos were taken with the best intentions in a manner my father would have approved with had he still been alive. For me, I treated the celebration as if my father was right next to me, posing for the camera as he had done on many occasions prior.
Yeah, so we got a poll about this because I am curious what you guys think. A lot of people have different ideas here. And we asked about whether she did the right thing. I don't. Look, so was the Instagram influencer wrong for her photo shoot in front of her father's open casket? Yes or no? Go to tyt.com/polls and you'll see that poll. Okay. Oftentimes I have no idea which way you guys are gonna go. So I think Instagram, if they actually took her account down because of this, probably should not have. But they might have a rule about showing dead bodies. I don't know. Okay, so if they have a rule about it, then it's fine. If they don't have a rule, then don't panic. It's okay. Now, but what do I think she should have done it? Well, look, I like different kinds of funerals. So, for example, I love Irish funerals. I don't think that you could be sad enough. Well, obviously, when I go to funerals, I'm incredibly sad because someone I love has died. But you do want to celebrate their life, and the Irish do that in a unique way by literally celebrating it, and that's great. I love that cultural tradition, right? And I guess this would be the equivalent of an Instagram funeral.
Not really
right?
though, because was the intention of her post to celebrate her father's life or was it to celebrate herself?
Yeah, I know, but in Instagram, so it's the Irish funeral is to celebrate the life of the person who's died.
Yeah,
in an Instagram funeral, it would be to celebrate yourself.
Your selfie, yeah.
Yeah, your selfies,
yeah,
like literally, right? Yeah. So that's why it's not the same thing, it's a different thing. And so is it the right thing to do? To me, the answer is fairly obvious. Of course not.
Yeah,
right?
I don't want to be judgmental, right? Like I'm trying really, really hard to be a better person in this. But like, am I gonna pretend like I'm a better person, or am I gonna tell you guys the truth about how I feel? I think it was awful. I think what she did was awful, self-absorbed, narcissistic, and she shouldn't have done it. I also think that what she was wearing to the funeral was super inappropriate. Like the whole package. It wasn't just the fact that she took those photos. It's like she's trying to show off her outfit and how cute she looks, and it's like you're like the thought. Like,
come on, look at those pictures.
No, I can't. Like, look, the thought of my dad die. Everyone grieves in different ways, but there's just, I don't know. If my dad died, I wouldn't even be. Are you kidding me? I wouldn't even be able to think about anything. I'd be so devastated. Like,
no, guys, this is not close. I'm gonna keep it way more real, okay? So, first of all, I'm not taking pictures like this in my dad's funeral. I'm just not, okay? And yeah, I would be.
Just don't take pictures like that ever.
Ever, to be fair, to be fair, okay? So, Young Turks has an awesome Instagram account. I do not, because I tried and I just kept taking pictures of food. And I was like, I don't think this is how it's supposed to work. I think that you're supposed to take pictures of selfies of you looking good. And since I couldn't do that, I just be like, all right, well, I look bad, but here's how I got there. Delicious food. Okay. Anyway, but Young Turks is oftentimes funny, informative, etc. site. But I think that's the right way to use Instagram. But let's keep it real. What do most people do on Instagram? Okay, and so when you're doing the ducky and cleavage stuff, look, to each his own. I don't mind at all. God bless. Now there's a sickness in America and across the world now where everybody's obsessed with fame and they think that's how they're gonna get to fame.
Yep.
And are you let's say highlighting your body to get there? Kind of obviously you are, right? But I'm not judging that.
I'm not judging that either.
Yeah.
Like, do you, boo? If that's what you want, do you? It's your father's funeral. It's off-putting, to say the least. That's all I'm saying.
I'm just saying no duck face at your dad's funeral, right? I'm not saying don't do duck face. And by the way, when I take a picture, trust me, I take it from up top, not from below. Okay, we're all aware of it. So
I just want to know who decided to not do her a solid and actually take the photos. Like, whoever that person is in your life, girl, they're not looking out for you.
No, she's still, I guarantee you right now, she's actually thrilled with the publicity. She actually, no. I guarantee you she thinks, like, she'll be upset and there's a lot of critique and that always gets to people. But at the end of the day, she's thinking, nailed it. Couldn't have gotten more publicity if I tried. And so, not the right way to go in my opinion, but you guys vote and tell us. Okay, bonus episode coming up right now where we're gonna vent. That should be interesting. We'll see you there.